the Rise Advocates Your Voice Matters series. I am so excited about a conversation that I'm going to be having tonight with Pivot and Rise Mastermind graduate, certified Rise advocate, Sharlyn Avina. And she is going to be talking to us about overcoming anxiety and finding ways to manage anxiety. So I'm so glad that she is here. And just for those of you tuning into Facebook, I'm going to just say that I have the Facebook over here, and I'm going to be looking at questions that you might have. And I do want to give a disclaimer that we are not doctors.
Yeah.
Certainly not counseling experts. So if you are looking for medical advice or anything like that, this is not the place to get it. Right? So this is
Exactly.
going to be just a great conversation with an amazing woman who is just like you and I. We're really just trying to make our lives happen. And Sharlyn just happens to have a little bit more information and experience in this area. So, with that being said, I just want to say welcome, Sharlyn. And, we met, it's been probably over a year, maybe
Yeah,
perhaps.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because we met when I've been doing work with this an amazing company called Solana,
Yeah.
and you are there, and we were doing some one-on-one coaching. But before we get into the nitty gritty, could you tell everyone what you do and how you got to Solana and what you love about what you do and so forth? So
Right, yeah. So I'm a technical communicator, which means I take technical words and make them so other people can understand them and learn stuff. So I've been with Solana actually 15 years as of like three or 4 days ago. Had my anniversary. So yeah. And it's kind of one of those funny, like fate kind of stories in that before I was at Solana, I was working for Sky Financial Group in Bowling Green, and I was commuting 45 minutes one way to work. And my oldest now was getting ready to start kindergarten. I was, anxious about how am I gonna be 45 minutes away? What if she gets sick at school? That kind of thing. So I started looking for a new job, and it just so happened that Solana had put this ad in the paper, and they were looking for a writer, and it was in 5 miles from my house. So I was like, oh, this is like
that sounds awesome.
this is like the perfect job for me. And I applied, and it was a really small company at the time. I was only the second woman that worked there, and there were only like 5 or 6 employees at the time when I got hired on, and they didn't have any writers. So I wrote the documentation for their software. And then we're on like the 3rd iteration of software upgrades and writing. So I do all that, and then I do their training, create e-learnings. I kind of wear lots of different hats at the company because we are a small organization. But the best part of Solana for me was we're actually owned by Sunshine, which is an organization that helps people with developmental disabilities. So our software runs agencies like them, and it helps them find where they can make their bottom line better by looking at how they're billing versus how much the people that they're working with are contracted for, and make sure that those things match up and that they're giving the best service, so they don't have to think so much about the back office thing and can spend more time working with people.
I love.
And yeah, and the fact that my nephew is autistic, and it feels really good to be working for an organization that are helping people like my nephew. And I knew all the struggles that my sister had gone through and working with agencies and things like that. So I had that kind of background. So it felt like a perfect fit. So 15 years later, I'm still here, and
Awesome. I love that.
I do. Yeah.
Great story. And I love Solana. You all do such great work. And,
Thanks.
we all need a technical writer. We all need to be able to take
Yeah.
people. So one of the things that Solana has been doing, which I love, is they are allowing for me to come in and do offer coaching. And one of the
Yes.
things, and of course, we've been talking for some time, that one of the things that you mentioned that you struggled with was anxiety. And
Yes.
I want to ask, because a lot of people, this is a time in the lives of people right now that a lot of people are struggling with anxiety. And
Yes. Yes.
can I just read this real quick? I just want to
Sure.
read stats because people need to know that according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States, affecting 40, I'll say it again, 40 million adults in the United States, age 18 and older. And, I want to say that because a lot of people struggle with this. So tell us, Shar, can I call you Shar?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us, Shar, when did you first discover that you struggled with anxiety?
So I, since I was a young child, probably in kindergarten, um, certain situations made my stomach hurt. So I was one of those problem children that always had a stomach ache, or I can't go to school because my stomach hurts. And as I got older, it pretty much came to like a peak when I was getting ready to graduate high school and move on campus at the university I was going to in Bowling Green. And it lasted for months. And what I mean by months in that I couldn't eat food. Like my stomach was so upset all the time. And when I tried to eat, it would like make me feel like I was going to throw up. My hands were shaking. I couldn't focus. I had a hard time sleeping. My mom and dad were like so worried about me. I moved into the dorm and it got worse. I just, I felt trapped there and the fear just like took over my life. And what ended up being hospitalized for a long weekend, getting rehydrated because I'd lost so much weight. And, people kept asking me, do you have an eating disorder? Are you anorexic or why don't you want to eat? It was hard to explain to them, but I do want to eat. I really do want to eat. I can't, I just felt nauseous all the time. And then I started going to, I had all the tests run, like upper GIs, and nothing was wrong with me. Although in the back of my mind, I was like, please, please, God, let there be something wrong with me, because, when there's no answer and they're just like, well, everything looks great, it just makes you feel frustrated. Like I am feeling these physical symptoms. I'm not making this up.
Right.
I'm really struggling. And so that's when they diagnosed me with anxiety. So I went into therapy in college. And then from that point on, I struggled with it. I won't lie. I still have episodes of where I have an anxiety attack or a panic attack. As I got older, it developed more into panic, where something would trigger it, who knows what it would be. And then I would start to feel the panic. And then it was more like the anxiety about the anxiety, because I have it the worst in the morning. So as the day wears on, I can start to eat maybe by supper and I start to relax and I go to sleep. I usually have an easy time falling asleep, but then I wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, can't fall back asleep. So then what happens is I start worrying that I'm going to have the anxiety symptoms. And then it
And
turns,
piles on top of it. It just,
yeah. So then it turns into that dog chasing its
yeah,
tail. I mean,
yeah.
and then you have the anxiety again. And then it just keeps feeding on itself until finally at some point I wake up and I don't even think about anxiety anymore. And then I'm like back to myself again.
Yeah. I
And
can't imagine. It's got to be so hard. And I know so many people suffer from it. I know recently I was going through something and I realized this could possibly be anxiety. And Shar, can I just also share this again? Because
yeah,
what I'm saying is, because I want people to know, see, your struggle is that you wanted someone to say that something was wrong with you, like physically.
yes,
Because we don't validate the fact that we have a brain and this brain is just like an arm, right? It can
yes,
get
yeah,
broken and it can malfunction. But I want to read this because it's this internal experience. Anxiety, they say, can be characterized as a persistent feeling of apprehension, anticipation, and dread. And that's what you have been describing is this anticipation, and because you're anticipating, oh my gosh, am I going to have another one? Is this going to happen
Yeah.
again?
Yes.
Did your doctor say that you could be, is there a cure? Have you, tell us a little bit about this, because you said a little bit like, you kind of, you manage it, but tell us, how do you do that?
So initially, it wasn't until originally when I was in college, I saw a therapist on campus, and we talked about managing stress, and we did a lot of progressive relaxation, journaling, those kinds of things, and they do help, and I still do those kinds of things today. And then when I was in my mid to late 20s, I had moved away. I was living in Illinois, and I was working for Motorola, and I was really far away from my support center. So like my family and my good friends were all back in Ohio, and here I was in Illinois, and I started having anxiety pretty quickly once I moved there. And I went to see a therapist there, and this time they referred me to a psychiatrist. And he talked to me, and he's like, well, why don't you just move back to Ohio? I'm like, don't be stupid. I'm not moving back to Ohio. I just got to Illinois, right? And then at that point, I wanted to stay. I didn't want to keep, so like there's a kind of like a balance for me. Like I want to be able to do new things, but then there's part of me that like, okay, let's avoid all these things because it's going to trigger the anxiety, and I don't like that physical feeling. But I did manage to stay in Illinois for 5 years, and they put me on medication. So and I'm still on a very low dose of the medication, which I've tried to get off of multiple times, and then I'll have a relapse or something that triggers, and I'll have an episode of anxiety. And I got to the point in my life where I was like, okay, why are you doing this to yourself when the medication helps? It doesn't eliminate all the anxiety, but it helps keep me at an even.
Yeah. Can I just say thank you so much for sharing that, because I feel people really get all twisted about that. Medication is there for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay. You know,
Yeah.
there's some people who could do alternative medicine. Uh,
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
aromatherapies that are available, but then some of us, we need to know that there are certain functions that happen in our brain where we
Yeah.
need extra help. And
Yeah.
I want to say this again, because we're not doctors, we're not counselors, and we're not offering advice. However, I will say that people really need to take this information in, because you probably need to take some of the steps that Shar is talking about, is go get seen. You know,
Yes.
and good psychologist, sounds like you had a good psychologist who
Yes.
said maybe you might need to see a psychiatrist, which
Yeah.
is someone who could take it different further and
Mhm.
prescribe some, give you a subscription to
Right.
some.
And I was very, very resistant to it. I mean, there for a long, long time. Um, Before I'd even moved to Illinois, a doctor he had prescribed me something, and I'm like, I don't need to take medication. But I will say that when I did start taking them, it saved my life. I feel like, because I was in such a low period, and I couldn't get out of it, and I couldn't get out of it. And I read too that a lot of people who have anxiety, then it turns into somewhat of a depression, because
Right.
you're so anxious all the time, and then you get depressed about, I can't do anything. It's never going to go away. And then you start just to feel like you can't control it. So
Yeah.
I am, it did help me. I had to try several different medications before they found the right one that helped me the most. But once they did, I really, it did help me. And when and like right now I'm on like a very low dose. So if something were to happen that triggered anxiety, like a high level of anxiety, I know that I can gradually increase that medication to until it goes away, until it ebbs down, and then I can take it back,
I
take
think
it back down.
so.
But
I want to say you're in, as you said, there are 40 million people who suffer from this, but more so, as I've read over the last obvious 6 months. And
yeah,
I'm so, as again, Shar and I are speaking, but everyone needs to know that a lot of people struggle with this. Even my girlfriend, Michelle Obama, who recently, and can I read this for her? She revealed in August that she's a person who's suffering, and I'm reading this real quickly, low grade depression. And she, as I said, has lots of company. So the past president of the American Medical Association said that, Michelle Obama, thank you so much for speaking out about this, because there's a stigma tied to it.
Hmm.
Referenced it. I don't need medication. I don't need this.
Yeah.
And stigma tied to it. And so many people could use this assistance to help them get through that, you know? And the coronavirus, the pandemic, everything
Mhm.
going on with the pandemic, everything going on with the protesting. Now we have an election coming up.
Yeah.
I will say that this is so very important for all of us to take this very seriously. For myself, I've been using the aromatherapy clary sage. I've been using valerian, other
Yeah.
aromatherapies that are good for me. Have you found any particular other solutions that you find you
Yeah. Um, so like, for example, traveling or flying. Flying used to cause huge anxiety in me, and to the point where there was like a 10 or 15 year, close to 10 years, more close to 10 years, that where I didn't fly at all. I wasn't getting on an airplane. In the last 5 years, I've flown like 3 times. So, but I'll do things to help myself that I know expect to be anxious. So you're going to be anxious. When I do feel anxious, I've learned to like talk back to my anxiety a little bit in my head, just to say, okay, this is going to happen. Your heart rate's going to race. You're going to feel a little bit maybe nauseous, but you're in a safe place. You do this, and then I have a bracelet that you can put essential oils on, and I went to one of those health shops, and I got one that's like for it has like some, I can't remember all the different oils in it, but it was one of those blends that was for help with anxiety. So I put it on the lava beads. I have that, so that way that can help me relax when I'm waiting for the plane to take off, that sort of thing. I I knit. So if I'm starting to feel anxious, I knit. That's awesome. That usually takes the edge off a lot, because what that does for me at least is, because you're using both hands to do it, and you have to concentrate on the loops, and you count. So that helps get your mind out of that spiral of all these catastrophic thoughts, negative thinking, and it puts your mind to like 1, 2, 3. I have to, and then it calms me. It helps calm me down. So that's a big thing that I'll do if I know I'm going to be in an anxious issue. I'll have the knitting in my bag so I can
yeah.
do that. It has something to do with my hands. I'll go if I'm home or somewhere I can, walking is a great therapy for me. I used to run, and running really did help me a lot, but my knees and my hip can't take it anymore. So now I've moved to walking. Right. So, just getting the fresh air and the deep breathing, um,
Yeah.
and having someone to listen to me,
Yeah.
so that I can't, um, being surrounded by people who understand that I'm not doing this on purpose, and just listen to me and check in to say, how are you doing today, Shar? I know you're having anxiety. You'll get through this again. If there's like 3 different people I know that I'll be on a walk and I'll call them. I'm like, I'm having anxiety. What am I going to do? I'll pick it up. But on the flip side, there's tons of people that I have talked to as I've shared my anxiety, and I found out they have experienced the same thing. So it's not like just me. And sharing tips and stuff, it's kind of cool to say, oh, have you tried one of those bracelets where you snap it, and then it kind of reminds you to stay in the present moment, instead of letting your mind go crazy.
You just gave some extremely good tips, and I hope people were able to write some of those things down. And the one thing I want to say, which is so clinically proven, is that, again, not a doctor, but just from my reading, is that first of all, you have to name it. You have to name this issue. This is
Mhm.
called anxiety, right? And this is called, or whatever that is, whatever, mental struggle you're dealing with. And then of course you validated that by going to the doctor. But
Mhm.
then also, as we're now talking about solutions, there are so many solutions that we can work on, of
Mhm.
course, alongside medication if that's what you need. And
Yeah.
just just recited a ton of them. And for I think all of us need to, one, name what's going on, and then two, really get clear about what are your triggers. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't know what triggers they have. And so,
Yeah.
one of the signs of emotional intelligence is being able to name what triggers you. And
Mhm.
that's some of the things we've been working on, Shar, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But then also with your counselors, understanding those triggers, and then doing the things like breathing, which we do a lot of, talk about a
Mhm.
lot, and then getting back into the present moment because we begin to recycle a
Yeah.
lot of negative thoughts. And as for me, because my faith is so very strong, I really start to remember, like, asking God and praying for me helps
Mhm.
me get
Mhm.
back into the present moment. But you don't know that you're going subconscious until you understand your triggers. So I love this bracelet thing that you have that
Yeah.
helps you.
Yeah. I mean, like I have a hairband a lot of time on my wrist just to,
Yeah.
yeah, um, just not just for my hair, but to remind me, okay, you need to get back in the present, Shar.
Yeah.
Stop. Like, and that's one of my biggest issues is I get into my head a lot and have a hard time letting go of things and just stop thinking about all this stuff. You're enjoy where you're at. Um,
Yeah.
a
And
walk.
so a lot of it, Char, as we've discussed and I've read, can be hereditary. It
Mhm.
goes for generation and
Mhm.
generation and generation. And one thing that you said to me is, you said, and this is where I'm stopping it. And I'm going
Mhm.
to change this for my family. Could you
Yes.
share with me what you put a line in the sand? You said, no more. This is
Yes.
me. So talk to me and talk to everyone about what steps you're taking, what books you've read, what ideas
Yeah.
you have on this.
So there's two books. The one that I think I read it like 4 or 5 years ago. It's called The Untethered Soul.
Mm,
Um, and it's not really a book about anxiety so much as it's a book about it talks about how you're not your hand, you're not your finger, you're not your foot, you're not your brain, you're not your thoughts. And then it helps you center who you are. Like, so you say into your mind, hello, hello. And you're the observer of your thoughts is how that's who you are. And so when I'm feeling anxious and this book, I don't know, it helped me a lot in that I'll have to remind myself, oh, say hello to yourself. Oh, yep, you're observing yourself thinking. Watch your thoughts go around in your head, because all those things make me me. But I'm not one of those individual things alone.
yeah.
And so that was a book
The
that
untethered soul. The
Untethered Soul.
okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the author of that one. um,
Make sure it's
um, yeah. And then the book that I'm reading right now, or I just finished with my daughter, um, so she has trouble sleeping at night in her own room, and she's in junior high, and she really wants to be able to sleep in her own bed. And I'm happy to report that she's doing an amazing job of doing that now.
awesome. That's
Um, but I realized I was her crutch, and I was allowing her not to face her anxiety because I remembered what it was like when I was her age, and one of my triggers is scary movies. So I don't watch scary movies, and it's not anything I feel like I'm missing out on. So it's not one of those things where I'm like, oh, she's avoiding scary movies to avoid anxiety. I don't like them anyway. But anyway, so I can remember laying in my bed and feeling nauseous and the sweat and like I can't sleep and I just want somebody to be with me. And I would trot down to my sister's room and beg her to come because I had a double bed in my room and she had a single bed. And I'm like, please come sleep with me. And, 10 minutes later, I'm out because there's somebody there. So I have always been a proponent of if my children say, I'm scared, can I lay with you? Sure.
Right.
That's fine. But what I didn't realize until I read this book, it's called Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents,
Oh,
that I was actually um, perpetuating the anxiety in my family. So maybe there is, I think there is a hereditary part of it, but there's also a very much is a learned part.
yeah.
So she sees how I react to anxiety. And then I, instead of pushing back on her, that says, honey, you're safe in your room. You can do this. Talk back to your anxiety. You're going to be fine. I would cave and be like, oh, it's okay. Just come lay with mommy. It's fine. But then she's not learning.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like an awakening to me that I was like, oh yeah, I'm passing
This
a
on.
learned behavior. I can't remember the exact statistic, but it was like 60% of kids who have a parent with an anxious parent, they end up having an anxiety disorder themselves. And it's kind of like the nature versus nurture thing. Is it, is it hereditary? It, how much of it is hereditary and how much is learned? Because that's just how our family's always anxious.
Yeah. I was reading this book by Joel Osteen, and he was just talking as a chapter devoted to these issues and how they're passed on. And
Yeah.
you bring up an extremely good point about heredity, whether it's inherited, through heredity, or
Hmm.
learned. And oftentimes it could be possibly learned.
Yeah.
So I think that's so extremely important for us for parents to recognize this. So
Yeah.
this is so good. Thank you so much for all of this. And this then, of course, you decided to sign up for the Pivot and Rise Mastermind.
Yes.
For those
Yes.
who are listening, the Pivot and Rise Mastermind was started in around June during the summertime, right in the height of the protests and the pandemic.
Yep.
And you signed up. Tell me, why did you come to this? What was it about it that attracted you to this Pivot and Rise?
So I remember I was already following you because of our coaching sessions. And I remember your ad came up and I read through it. I was like, have you seen some success? Do you feel like you haven't done enough? Have you been wanting to do more? Um, and when Diana and I talked in our coaching, I had talked about how I had this feeling that I wanted to stand up more for equity and social justice and racial justice. And but I didn't know where to go next or what I could do. What does it look like to be an advocate? And so when this course came up, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need to help me move to the next level of being an advocate for other people. So that was the main thing that drew me into it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I loved you being a part of it. What was it that you felt you got most out of this, now that you're a certified Rise advocate? For those who
Yeah,
are,
I think
yeah,
the biggest thing is finding, like we were talking about, is finding my voice.
yes,
Because before, um, I would think something or something would come up and I would just push it aside. Like I wouldn't speak up if somebody said something um, that I didn't believe in or I felt like it was uh, wrong or that they have a racist idea or something similar. I would just in the back of my mind be mad and but not say anything. I didn't like anything that would make me feel like anxiety was rising up in me. I didn't like that feeling. This the class helped me to recognize that it's my voice is important and not everybody's going to love me or like me, but I can't feel true to myself if I don't voice what how I'm feeling or what I think is right in the world. So um it gave me the courage to start writing more and more about these causes that are important to me and that I feel need to be moved into needing to move the needle to the right direction. Um, it was back, about 4 or 5 years ago where I really started to feel like, wow, my eyes were open to all the different injustices and things that were going on. And I just wanted to be able to do more. But I was afraid to write about it. And what are people going to say? Um, are people going to not like what I say? But as it turned out, I haven't really got a lot of negative feedback for the most part. Um, probably the people who don't like what I was saying have unfollowed me, which is fine. I don't want them to follow me anyway. But I've gotten a lot of positive feedback and people saying, "Oh, thank you for writing that. That's exactly how I feel." Or um, this has been you. That's well said. Thank you for sharing what I've been thinking all along. So that's been good for me.
It's awesome. And I really feel that folks who are listening can really understand you've taken steps to get to where you are today. And I'm so grateful that the Pivot and Rise Mastermind kind of helped get you to that next level of speaking, because if there's anyone that needs to speak, it's you. And it's so many people who struggle with finding their voice and
Yeah.
letting people know. And we talk a lot about making certain, and I love Ruth Bader Ginsburg's uh,
Mhm.
when she says, do things that really help you say things to help people follow you. Now, there are going to people who are going to unfollow you,
Yeah.
absolutely. But the one thing that we talk about often is we're not always going to be the most popular, because she wasn't always the most popular.
Right. Exactly.
You're doing things in a manner that helps people come to an understanding, which is what you
Yeah.
were saying. Some people you can't reach, some people you can.
Exactly.
And I appreciate you saying that. And so you write a blog.
Yes.
What's the type? Can you talk a little bit about your blog?
Yeah, so it's called Undaunted. And it talks about, it's called, my tagline is um, overcoming anxiety to find your voice.
Mm.
And I write about different topics. So you can go in back in my history and I'll write about, it's kind of a slice of life in a way, because I'll talk about what's going on, what I'm struggling with at the moment and what I've learned, and try to pass on some wisdom of some sort. Or else maybe it'll be just like a funny story or something that I'm hoping people can relate to in their lives, and maybe just be slightly inspired if possible.
I've been inspired. I absolutely love it. And so you now are doing your blog. What other types of advocacy is important to you? I know that you now have are you using the hashtag? Because we talk a lot about hashtags.
Yeah, yep. I've learned about the hashtags.
Yeah, the anxiety warrior, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What else?
I'm starting to become a little bit more active on Twitter and Instagram, and then following people who are like-minded or who have similar experiences, and then sharing their tweets and their Instagram posts to my story, and learning from them. And my Twitter followers have increased a little bit just from doing that kind of a thing. So that's pretty awesome. And then I've tried to get involved in more organizations that for the causes that I'm passionate about. So I have to feed through my email a little bit, because there's always a petition or a call to action now. And I never would have thought that 3 years ago, I didn't know what could you do. I'm like, I had no idea even where to turn. And now I've subscribed to these different lists and donated my time and some money to different organizations. And now my email every day, I have a different call to action and stuff. And so I have to try to weed through those and figure out what
And
I
narrow
really
it down.
focus on. Yeah. So right now I'm in the middle of a letter writing campaign to get out the vote. It's through voteforward.org, and you adopt voters that have registered to vote, but typically don't vote or haven't voted in the past. And you write your story about why do you vote, and then encourage them to vote. So it's a nonpartisan thing. You're not telling them who to vote for,
Yes.
like that, but just that you have a voice, and this is the best way that you can participate in our democracy and make a difference and make your voice heard, so that if you don't like what's going on, vote them out.
Right.
And not every candidate is going to be the best candidate ever, but you got to figure out which one aligns the most with your what you believe in, and then try to find a better candidate for the next time it comes around.
Yeah.
Maybe someday run for yourself, who knows.
Maybe someday you'll run.
Maybe.
We don't know. But
That's
I
right.
a little bit of that in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Shar, you know what? Your light is so bright when we first met. You
Yeah.
sparkle, and I even know that even on the job, I know
Yeah.
folks have said your CEO has said she speaks more, right? And you even
Yeah.
have done some advocacy at Solana. Tell us what you
Oh,
started.
right. Right. So, especially after the incident with George Floyd's death, Solana, or my CEO, had become, he was writing us weekly letters, and he talked about how he wanted to do more at Solana. And so we formed the diversity, equity, and inclusion team, which I'm a member of. So there's 4 or 5 of us on the team. And so right now we're in the process of um, we just figured out like what our mission was going to be and what topics we want to educate people on. We're going to be bringing in speakers and trying to have those difficult conversations within our organization, to help people be more aware of other people's differences, and that it's that being different is good, and that it's nothing to be afraid if somebody's different,
Yeah,
and that we can come together and build equity for everyone.
yeah.
Um,
You know, I can I just say, okay, you are like this. I've had so many star students. We have so many wonderful people who are now certified RISE graduates. We heard from Rhonda Kimmons this past
mhm.
week, and of course Sarah Best a few weeks back. And I say you are among a group of women who have really taken this material in the Pivot and Rise Mastermind, because we start off by looking at your mindset, your calling, and then we add in sprinklings of personal development and professional development, all to get to advocacy and putting what you learn to action. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say you took it to the nth degree, because you
Thanks.
looked at your community, you looked at your job, and you looked at yourself and said, okay, what do I need to do? And so I just want to applaud you, because
Thank you.
you have really done it, and you are constantly examining your life to see what is that chokehold, because a lot of us have chokeholds. I'm going to tell you now, I was very honest with you guys, and I talked about it last week with Rhonda, that after getting through the program and having you guys graduate, I was going through a little bit of something, and then
Mhm.
I realized I needed to take some time to go through
Yeah.
my own triggers and what is that in for me, even though I was going through some physical changes.
Yeah.
You can't be the best advocate you can be without making certain that your mindset is right, that you're doing things that are going to help you propel there, that you are getting quiet and you're utilizing the strategies that are going to help you stay, settled, so that you can be that best advocate that you've been called to be.
Yeah.
And serve, because you're doing so much in serving others. So I just thank you so much, Shar. How can
Thank
we
you.
follow you? What is it they where would they go to follow your blog?
It's undaunted.blog.
Okay, Undotted.
Pretty easy.
Not
Yep.
difficult.
Yep. And then I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Sharlyn Avina. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to be checking back in with you. Of course, we see each other often because I do
Yes. Mhm.
coaching with Solana. So I just want to say thank you. And then I just want to say to everyone who's listening that there's a few things I would like all of us to do. One, if you need to listen to this again and write down the things that were talked about, please do that, because we want to make certain that have a space for yourself, that you are getting to understanding your anxiety, if you're dealing with that, or depression, or anything like that, to get that help that you need. And then also, too, for you to, if you are interested, to sign up for the Pivot and Rise Mastermind. We're going to be launching a new course in January. We're launching it in January with the new and improved online course module. Before, we weren't doing the online course, we were just doing the classes, but this is going to be an online course module. Just go to riseadvocates.com and you can sign up there to get yourself registered. But in the meantime, there are going to be little breadcrumbs along the way up until January. So if you sign up and register, we're going to be able to give you little things that are going to help inspire you all the way up until January. And then also, too, just continue to follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook for inspiring messages and inspiring tools that are going to help you propel yourself. And I will end with this, that I just believe that with God all things are possible. I believe in prayer. I believe that in faith, and I believe in living for more than what you see around you. So if you struggle at all in any of these areas, please message me if there is something that I can do for you to help you and encourage you and inspire you along the way. So that's my final message. Again, go to riseadvocates.com. You can read my blog on risewithdiana.com. So I have two places if you're interested in reading blog. And don't forget to go to Shar's undaunted.blog, right?
Yep.
That's it. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night. And
Thanks.
that's it. All right.